We did record each of the sessions, and there was one that was like almost a gig, and that was the 20th. Usually they pop out around 250 megabytes, but the 20th was right around a gig, and so I had some trouble popping that up on our website. So I shared the link earlier to WebEx with you guys. You should have got that. If you didn't get it, check your spam. But at least I got that out to you. We're going to continue to push them all out in raw form. So the reason why I put them down there at the bottom of that page on the website is because more than likely, it's just going to be you guys that are going to scroll all the way down to the bottom of that page and see those videos. So that's what we've done in the past until we have some of our folks going through and editing the videos. So that's really the battle rhythm. Tonight, we're going to go through cryptography. So this is one of the most difficult topics in all of security. And I think hopefully we're going to have a little bit of fun now that Kincaid is here. So, hey, Kincaid, how you doing? Well, you know what? That's better than awful or, flipping awful. So,
or just darn awful.
Or darn awful. Yeah, there you go. Although sometimes, you got to use some curse words. All right. So, Andrew,
yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and put in the chat what your thoughts are, and we'll go ahead and see who knows what.
You know what? I think we're going to be feeling a little packed tonight, so we're going to throw a soft toss. And I think we want to know about operates on 480. So if you guys write this message in the chat. Well, you're wrong.
Is she wrong because she put it to everybody, or is she just wrong because she's wrong?
Yes.
Send it over to Andrew.
Send it to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I see a few of you guys have already sent it to me.
Yep.
So if you got it wrong, then especially if you send it to everybody, then ruh-roh, Reggie. Ruh-roh.
Joshua, why are you giving me a port number? I gave you one.
That's what I meant. I didn't mean
that.
That's because I'm an idiot. Do you need a better reason?
I'm feeling that today too.
I guess port 80 would equal port 80. So.
I mean,
well,
80 is equal to 80.
Yeah, I mean, he's close. So, yep. So, everyone that's private messaged me has gotten it correct, except for someone that gave me port 22, but then corrected their answer. Well, we can't talk about what goes over port 80 without talking about what goes over port 443. Now, private message me to that in chat. I think hopefully everyone's got it figured out now.
So, what I usually do, who's missing, and later on call.
Okay.
These should be cherry pickers. That person in basketball that is right underneath the net that decides to not go down and play defense. You throw the ball to them and they're just, they're there, but it sucks because you only got 4 people on defense. But for the purposes of the test, you shouldn't miss any of these when we get to the tail end of the boot camp. So usually we see a drag and drop that has 4 or 5 of these, usually. So out of these 22, usually 4 or 5 of them show up in the form of a drag and drop. Usually they do count as a point. So it's 4 or 5 points collectively out of the 90.
Well, let's go ahead and, Kelsey, I'm gonna take a page out of your book here, and I'm gonna ask what port telnet operates on.
Excellent choice.
I knew it. I don't know.
So I've got a wrong answer here. I'm not going to call them out, but the answer we're looking for was port 23. Not calling anyone out there.
Ever since the all the Michael Jordan reference to the man and that stuff.
Well, let's throw another one here. And this one should be easy. So what operates on port 123? Yes. I mean, try to do it from memory. Just because when you're in the testing room, you aren't going to have Dr. Google to help you out. Joshua, that's just wrong.
Never possible. It's just incredibly difficult.
So I'm going to give you guys a mnemonic here. What we're looking for is NTP, or Network Time Protocol. And I think NTP, it's just as easy as 1, 2, 3. So
That's how
and you know what? We've talked about NTP, so what port does NNTP operate? If you don't know it, take a stab. I mean, he's not pointing a gun at you, but he's wanting some candy. Good old Stormy. I mean, come on, take a stab. So, the answer we were looking for was port 119. So, you guys got that right now? Now we've got one here that's a little tricky to learn. And what ports does NetBIOS use? Yep. Kincaid, you're right in theory, but I need some numbers there, buddy. So, okay. So right now, good news is most of you guys got that right. And I'm not going to call out the ones that got it wrong. Particularly just because NetBIOS is a bit of a pain to learn first time you're doing it. So the ports that you guys need to know, and this is, let me make sure I've got this right. Yeah. So with this one, with NetBIOS, you're going to skip 136. So it uses 4 ports, 135, 137, 138, 139. So you can put that range there, and if you know the 130 in a multiple choice setting, you're more than likely, you've got a decent chance of guessing it. But I know 136, I struggled when first learning, I kept wanting to throw that in there. So, yeah, so, you know, I think I've heard Ben Tufts use this phrase that, you know, if it's free, it's for me. So, what port does MySQL use? Okay. So, and I'm going to go ahead and ask you guys. Let me make sure I'm typing this correctly. Yep, it's got 2 S's. Send me the port that MSQL runs over. So I'm waiting to see if anyone else chimes in here at the last minute. And well, so I'm noticing, and I put those 2 sequentially because I'm picking up something. You have a couple of you guys are getting these 2 reverse. So when it comes to MySQL, you're going to be looking for port 3306. And with MS-SQL, you're going to be using 1433. And the easiest way I find to remember that is if you're stuck guessing between the 2. Think about it in alphabetical order. That S comes before Y. So most of you guys were getting the ports right. You were just, a couple of you guys were getting them backwards. So, but let's see what else. What haven't we done tonight? Oh, there. I remember, what runs over port 88?
Now that's the 3-headed dog gatekeeper of the Greek underworld, right?
I mean,
I got an answer.
Bingo, everyone is getting that. Port 88, it is Kerberos, and it has something to do with what, Tom Hanks? Ticket?
Oh, tickets.
Tickets.
Tom Hanks in what movie?
Was it How the Grinch? No, Polar Express.
Were you going to say How the Grinch Stole Christmas?
I was going to use it for comedic effect.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Polar Express.
Polar Express.
Tickets, please. Tickets.
Tickets.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's give him another soft toss here. What ports does FTP run? And you guys are all correct. FTP, it uses ports 20 and 21. So, pretty easy. These guys are doing well tonight. Let's see, how many have we got? Hey, what runs over port? What runs over port 3389? Kincaid, that's just wrong.
Yeah.
Like, it has something to do with mail, apparently.
That was my guess, but I was thinking something else.
Oh,
And then we have
3389 has something to do with mail?
mail, apparently.
My world it does.
I hear Shane. Who is Mr. Sergey?
It's a shame I missed this one, because I actually use it quite a bit.
So the answer we were looking for was RDP. That is Remote Desktop Protocol.
I got one right here.
You got one?
All right, so let's dig a little bit deeper here and see if you can answer that one for me.
Now that's a good one.
I mean, mine aren't as easy.
I mean, yeah. I'll teach you to complain about me.
Yeah. Kincaid, me. Yes, David got, he was the first to chime in. Good. John, no. Yes, but no. Josh sells. Yeah, no. That's not what I was looking for. So they're both in clear text, right? Both of them are in clear text. So if you're sniffing the wire, you can see all the traffic, including user ID and password for FTP. But TFTP doesn't have authentication. So FTP at least does, but if you're sniffing traffic, you can see that user ID and password. Good job, David. Yes, that's correct. Good, good. All right, Andrew, go ahead.
So, I'm gonna ask you guys here, and we're gonna throw another soft toss here. But what port does TFTP use?
Kelsey, no.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
Yep.
My bad,
Yes, Shane, good.
Everyone's got it.
All right, fantastic. So when we talk about one topic, these all go into a particular type of bucket. What kind of control would these be right here? Okay. No. So those would all be administrative controls. Administrative controls. That's what we were looking for there. Of course, you know, there's technical and physical controls. What about this right here? What would this, you guys had some homework and I received it from most of you. So this should be very familiar here. What is somebody attempting to do with that? Okay, good. You were. That's okay. So SQL injection. So you don't have to bypass authentication with SQL injection. You can also use SQL injection for any input field that's out there. So the first step would be to try to bypass authentication, but after that, you can use it for any input field that's not validated. And so input validation, SQL injection, those will go hand in hand on the exam. You'll see those two synonymously on the exam. All right, so oh, this is a good one right here. What about this one right here? Yes. Good, Shane. Good, John. Good, Dave. Good, Josh. Good, Josh. Yes, that's correct. Kincaid, good. It's also the place that separates North and South Korea.
A set of giant fences and armed guards.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. So we were looking for the DMZ there. DMZ. Oh, this is a good one right here. We talked about this the other night. What is that? I know you've slept since the last time you saw it. Okay, we were looking for enticement on that one. Enticement, you guys knew it was one or the other, right? Enticement is what we were looking for on that one. What about this type of attack? What is this type of attack? And you will actually have this for homework on that hackme.cyberprotects.com website. What is that type of attack? There is a key word in there that gives this away. And it's not the word input. This is something you can do to input if it does not have input validation. Not only SQL injection, but you can also do this. Yes. Good. Kincaid, good. Shane, good. John, good. Josh Sells and Josh Nordstrom. No, that's not it. Josh Sells, that's pretty close, but no, that's not it exactly. So it is cross-site scripting, XSS. And the alert from JavaScript is what is meaningful there. And we'll do a practical lab that you guys will actually go through and do proof of concept, much like that SQL injection. Now, the reason why I give those out is because you can read all you want about it, you can watch videos, but until you actually do it and can prove the concept and then show me that you can do it. Typically, if we're doing a penetration test, that's what we'll do is we'll go through and document via screenshots on a step-by-step process. A few of you sent the things over to me, showing that you did the homework. And there was one thing that you should have noticed if you went through and played with it. And this is the way that it is with any application that you're messing with, or you're trying to figure out how you can compromise it. It will, if you provide something to it that is not what it's expecting, it will throw an exception. Typically, those exceptions are called errors. And how we as web developers or as programmers handle those exceptions is super important. We can either handle them gracefully and provide you well, this is awkward kind of a page, and say, here, click back here because you did something that we didn't expect. And so you see that a lot on people that know how to program, is we catch it and you only have one option, that's to go back. For websites like that vulnerable website that we have out there, the hackney.cyberprotects.com, and many other misconfigured websites, usually what we'll see is those websites will throw that exception, and then inside of the stack trace of that web server, it'll tell you a bunch of meaningful things. And it should have said, or it should have read to you that there's a MySQL database. It probably said something about running Apache. It probably showed you that some sort of SQL statement, structured query language statement. And it really helps you define what is the next step. So if you are able to actually do that SQL injection, what's the next step? Because now that you know that it's a MySQL database, it's running Apache version 1.1.1, whatever version is, you know that there's a user table and there's a field in the user table called login. I mean, that's enough to be dangerous right there. And you start taking notes. The most frustrating thing that typically we see with a lot of young professionals getting into the business is the most sexiest thing is penetration testing. That's what everybody wants to do. But a lot of folks don't have the patience to actually read those stack traces. They just say, well, this website must be broken. When in fact, it's not. It's telling you that because you did something that forced it to not be handled. And because of that, you can actually make a note, go in and kind of weasel your way through. It's not going to happen the first time. Did anybody get it done the first time? Anybody able to cut and paste that thing and pop it in there? Oh, you did? The Jeremy one? You just copied and pasted that in there? Okay. Usually there's a little bit of a change between that. In theory, it should work, but I mean, yeah, if you copy and paste it and it worked, then I don't know if that is a true sign of what I was hoping that you would get, because typically it doesn't happen the first time. It'll happen the 20th time. And in that lab, I've also provided a list of common security or SQL injection commands, and you don't have to stay within that parameter. You don't have to just say tick or 1 = 1. You can, if I'm a developer and I'm saying, okay, I'm looking for a single quote, or I'm looking for somebody to type in 1 = 1, well, those regular expressions are finite. So I'm just looking for a tick. I'm looking for 1 = 1. Well, clever attackers out there will say, well, how about 1 million = 1 million? Or how about 2 = 2? So if you don't throw what's called regular expressions on to an input validation, where you're actually going through and checking for every possible outcome, somebody's going to find an issue. And once they find that issue, it's going to be exploited. So hopefully that was a meaningful one. We're going to be doing SQL or cross-site scripting with the next lab over the weekend. So you guys will find that quite fruitful, I imagine. All right, let's go in with the next one here, and I'll type it in. We spent a little bit of time on this the other night. Okay, John, it doesn't have to be. Doesn't have to be. But yes, typically those are absolutely. This one that I got up here, that little Raspberry Pi, that could be considered an embedded system. SCADA, somebody put in SCADA, yeah. SCADA would be a type of embedded system. Industrial control systems. It doesn't necessarily have to be an older system, though, right? Because there's a lot of things that have embedded microcontrollers in them right now. Like, remember we talked about the Roku TVs, smart TVs. So, you know, there is a fine line between what an embedded system does and what the next one does. But it typically has a dedicated process. It's focused on something. Usually it's got something dedicated, right? Where you can, it has a function. You push a button and it does something, and that's all it does in life. Usually that's what a supervisory control system does, or industrial control system does. What about this next one here? We're seeing a lot of these. We talked about grandma buying a teddy bear for somebody.
Or the coffee pot.
Or the coffee pot. That's right. Yes, yes, yes. Good. Everybody's yawning at me. Oh.
Just getting to that, it seems harder and harder to tell the difference between embedded, software, and hardware. It's kind of all different, like July.
It does. Okay, good. Yep, that was Internet of Things, or IoT. What about this next one here?
You know, Ben, for whatever reason, that question makes me think of getting a pizza after classy.
Oh. Oh. You buying?
I mean, you know, there's Little Caesars nearby, right?
I mean, you make big bucks, right?
I mean, you know.
Okay, good, good. Yeah, we were looking for cloud computing at its simplest form. Remember, there's a bunch of different types of cloud computing underneath it. So those are all important as well. All right. All right, Andrew, do you have any more of the ports that you want to jump through?
I mean, I think they were killing it. I think we're good to jump into the fun we've got here tonight, cryptography.
All right, fantastic, fantastic. Let's go through. Let me ask one more question here. Actually, I reserve the right to ask as many questions as I want to. Yeah, we were looking for application, presentation, session, transport, network, data link, and physical layer. So all people seem to need data processing, or whatever way you're going to remember it. The process, remember, it's called encapsulation or decapsulation. I know those are big words, but that's what it's called. And then let's just do a few on the first domain here. What is that right there? Yes, David. Yes, John. Yes, Kincaid. Good. Good, Shane. Good, Josh. Good, Trenton. Good, Kelsey. All right, we were looking for the Trojan man there. Good.
Was it a man or a horse?
No, no, I'm just thinking of something else, I guess. All right, what about malware that sits dormant until it is triggered by a specific action or event? Yes, John. No, Shane. Yes, David. Kincaid, did you type in boob there? Is that what you said? Oh, logic boob. Bob. Sorry. All right, Shane, no. Save that for the next one, though. Dave, yes. Trenton, yes. All right, we were looking for a logic bomb. So there's some sort of event that triggers the nastiness to happen, and that is a logic bomb. Good, good. All right, what about this one? So once infected, the PC is considered a zombie or a drone. A zombie or a drone. Trenton, yes. Good, good, good. John, think again. That's what it does. Shane. That's funny. That's funny. Dave, good. Kelsey, good. Yeah, we were looking for a botnet, and essentially what that does is it allows a distributed denial of service attack to happen. It could. All right. How about this one? This one's pretty interesting. Yeah. So if it's malicious, it's called a backdoor. If it's deliberate by the software person, it's called a maintenance hook. Called a maintenance hook, or a hook into the system. All right. What kind of malware is that right there? Everybody should get that. Yes. Good, Dave. Good, Kincaid. Good, Shane. Good, John. Good, Josh. Good, Trenton. Good, Kelsey. All right, good. Yeah, we were looking for ransomware right there.
Do we have sponsors tonight, Ben?
I mean, we must have some sponsors.
You know, we're getting some kickbacks from Aflac here.
You know, you guys were talking about somebody earlier before we started.
Yeah, dead guy.
Now, what about this type of attack? Kincaid, yes. Yes, David. Good, Josh. No, John. Go fish. Trenton, yes. Kelsey, no. John, no. I'm giving you a hint. The middle? Yes, you're right. Man in the middle. That's correct. I'm starting with the man in the middle. I know, I'm not funny. That's okay. So yeah, man in the middle attack. Those are really difficult to do. Those are really difficult to do. You have to be on the same network or somehow get on the same network with that person. This one's kind of neat right here. And we have done this for a number of different customers. We actually use some software to be able to make this magic happen here. Kincaid, you're a little too technical for me there. But yes, the second part. Yes, good. We were looking for phishing there. Now, if I'm targeting somebody, that would be spear phishing, right? If I'm going after Barney Big Nuts at an organization, CEO, CIO, you know, CFO, some big dog, that is going to be whaling, because that's a whale. If you get that person, they probably have access to some other information. All right. This one's kind of neat. An attack where a request for a website is redirected to a similar website that looks the same but is really fake. The website is usually an e-commerce site. No, Josh, no.
Was it at least funny? Or was it just wrong?
I don't know if I know what that acronym means. Yes, Kelsey. John, no. Kincaid, yes. That is correct. All right, so let's go through and do something here. So I just put something into the chat window. Oh, you are? I don't know if you're going to be able to install it then. So over here, I put it up here on the overhead. HT track is something that's used to copy websites. And if you've never done this before, it's quite interesting. Let me just show you how this works. So you can feel free to download it if you trust it. I'm going to go over here and I'm just going to click download. I'm going to click the exe here. I don't know about Mac, but you know, well, I guess we're going to find out here. So what? Oh, they do? All right. So if you've never played with this before, it's kind of cool. Let me just make sure I got it going on here. There we go. So this is what it looks like. And I always, whenever I do this, I always think about going to the optometrist. You know, I wear contacts, but when they start bothering me, I jump into the glasses. And I always think about that because it's amazing what this can do in such a short amount of time. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click next. And again, with the intent to copy the website and farm something. So let me just do test here. And I'll put it into my websites. It'll go into the C drive here, and we'll actually I'm gonna put it down here in the data drive. How about that? Go back here.
Did I miss it or did you
Say what?
which after this is
Farming.
that's what's called.
So what we'll do is we'll copy the website with the intent that we're going to phish somebody to get them to click on maybe a typo squatted website. And obviously, you know, you don't want to do this unless you have the express written consent of whatever you're doing it for. But this is a technique that attackers use. And what we'll do is we'll go through and copy the CyberProtect's website right now. So in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the website, HTTPS, and feel free to follow along with me if you can, if you want to download it. If not, then just watch up here. And then over here, there is a spider. So in the set options, I'm going to go to spider. And on every website, at the root of every website, there's a robot.txt file. And that robot.txt file tells crawlers or spiders that are out there, hey, don't go in these directories on my web server. It's supposed to follow it. Spiders are. So we're going to say no robot.txt rules, or do not follow the robot.txt rules. And then we'll light it up like a Christmas tree. I'll just go next, and then I'll disconnect it when finished, and we'll let it rip. We'll see how much it does here. Just kind of let it go for a little bit. You can see this thing's already starting to go to town. It's already written 15 files from the website. Anybody else running it right now? Anybody get it installed? So this is where I probably would get up and go get a cup of coffee or something. Come back in like 45 minutes to an hour if we have a target website that we're going after. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let it go for a minute here, okay? And then I'll cancel and I'll stop it. And just in 1 minute, cancel, stop. You can see that it really wanted to keep going. Okay, sure. No, I'm not going to delete all of that stuff. I'm going to browse the mirrored website. I'll do it in Chrome. I'll bring it up in Chrome. So what I'll do here is let me go out to the real website. And then I'll show you here. I didn't let it go more than a minute, but you can see that in that minute, it copied all the menu, right? Copied all the menu. We got the logo. I would have let it keep going. It would have kept copying. It got most of this stuff down here. Let's see if it got anything over here. Yeah, it got all the software site, right? So I say go into the optometrist because which one's the real, which one's fake, right? So 1, 2. A or B? C or D, right? They look identical. And if we just let it run, we can carbon copy any website that's out there with the intent that if I'm going to go fishing for some of these employees that are on these website or these companies that we test out for, I'll go and buy a one-off domain for $3.99. So in this case, maybe Cyber Protexes, right, with an X on the end, or something like that, where innocuously somebody won't notice the URL and they'll click on it, and it happens all the time. What we do typically is we'll embed the link, and in the HTML it'll have the typo squatted website, and in the phishing email it'll say the real website name, but underneath the cover it'll point to the fake one. And so copying the website with the intent to do harm or collect payments from people is farming. And we actually did one on a defense contractor this time last year. And we did it over a series of 10 days. First one was free Iron Bowl tickets, where we fished the email and then sent them out to a website that looked exactly like their website. And out of the 70 people that were tested in that company, we had 7 people that clicked on the link. Seven people that opened up the email. Out of the 7 people, 4 people clicked on the link, and then one of those people clicked on the free tickets button on the fake website. That was the first day. And so we kind of did that. Free Chick-fil-A sandwich the second day. Taco Bell was another one. That was popular.
Taco Bell.
And then we ended it with right around this time last year, which would be great for us to do tomorrow. We did the company is having we did an Evite because we heard that that's what the company is like to send out to its employees for employee gatherings. And so we farmed the website and we said, click on the Evite to join the costume party tomorrow over at the Westin at Bridge Street. And one of the owners of the company was absolutely furious. Apparently there was somebody who dressed up in a costume and went over to Bridge Street thinking that there was a $100 prize ready for the costume contest. But it's pretty straightforward to do something like this with these types of tools. On the Windows side of the house, there's things like HTTrack. On the Linux side of the house or on Windows, there's wget and other copy tools that are out there where you can curl CURL, the website, so you can copy the website. But there's a bunch of different techniques you can do this, and just know that our adversaries have nothing but time. And so we just spent a minute copying that website, but if we were to take, an hour, it would copy the entire thing. So that is farming right there.
Most of the time, on modern websites.
On dynamic websites, yeah. Yeah, things that render PHP, but it won't copy things in a database, but it'll copy any static HTML files that are out there. It'll copy videos, it'll copy images. I mean, it's pretty robust tool. Pretty robust tool. All right, so. All right, I think that's probably a pretty good review. Yeah. So if you have any deficiencies there, if there's anything that you think you might want to talk more about, let us know. But at this point, Andrew, why don't you go ahead and get the party started, buddy?
I mean, let's get started. We're jumping in with cryptography tonight, right?
I believe you are.
I mean, now this is a fun part of it. So, Ben, do you want me to share screen from my computer, or do you want to?
Yeah, go ahead. Share from your computer.
All right, you guys should be seeing slides up on screen now within WebEx. So, Ben, would you just keep an eye on chat for questions? Or... No. So, cryptography, it is a huge part of the test. So, like we were drilling at the start of our review, ports and protocols, just to try to drill those into memory, you're going to see cryptography come up on the test. And later tonight, we're going to talk through some memorization techniques we have to help you differentiate between some of the different standards that we've seen over years. Ben's seen over years, but that's come up on the test. That wasn't meant to be an old joke. I apologize.
Fuck you.
So, a couple of the terms here we'll talk through very high profile rather quickly. So, whenever you see cryptographic life cycle or cryptography life cycle, that's referring to the time from when an encryption standard is thought up and from its inception, typically to the time it dies or it's cracked. And we'll talk through later on some standards that have been cracked and others that haven't. When it comes to types of cryptography, we're going to talk through 3 types, and you have asymmetric, symmetric, and hashing. And we'll dig into that a little more in depth here in a bit. Now, Ben, what is this whole PKI thing?
Oh, wow.
That sounds important.
That's a big deal. Big deal. We'll jump into PKI. We'll talk a little bit about that. And I think that, a lot of this vernacular, if you're not familiar with it already, it's important for you to understand that once you get over the fact that these can be learned, we can have a little bit of fun with it. And at the master's level, I took a modern cryptography class at NYU, and I was able to keep up with them with different types of algorithm developments and some of the things. And I'm reminded back when I was growing up, a buddy of mine had
Another ad?
I mean, WTF, man.
I mean, who's giving us money now for advertising?
I mean, hold on. Let's just see. There we go. A buddy of mine had cable TV growing up, and on the weekends, sometimes I would spend the night over at his house, and we would watch. Let me share this. Make sure I'm sharing this here. We would watch little Tales from the Crypt. And if you've never seen this before, that's okay. It's kind of like, Alfred Hitchcock meets the Twilight Zone. There's actually another one called The Hitchhiker that was pretty cool. But these are all kind of obscure, kind of weird things where there's a hidden meaning inside of it. And then there's this goofy guy that you'll see here in a second.
The music's rather ominous here.
Something's going to happen.
I mean, we're going to get some cheap jump scare you, right?
Jump scare's coming up.
Why is it people going into perfectly creepy basements? You know, common sense will tell you to stay out.
Oh, goodness.
Oh.
Wow. So why do I bring that up? Because, to me, just, I mean, Andrew, what are you doing? What are you doing over here, guy? So to me, knowing that, some of my favorite things in the world, like Superman, and Superman's dog is named what? Anybody know? Crypto. And where's Superman from?
Krypton.
Krypton. So that root word comes from the Greek meaning to hide. And if we can kind of just agree upon that, the secret writing. I remember, from my historically, and you won't see any of the historical things on the exam, but historically, cryptography has been alive since the beginning of time. Some people would argue that the ancient Egyptians with hieroglyphics are a form of cryptography. You transform to a little bit further in the evolution, and people would say that the Kama Sutra is a form of cryptography because it was taboo to talk about things like that. And as you continued to move, there were different techniques that in classical cryptography would work for a period of time, and then somebody would break it. Somebody would figure it out. Whether it was sealing a note with the stamp of a king or somebody royal in wax or something like that. So there needed to be a different way to do that. And so, I like to read about the history of things and to figure things out. And one of the most interesting things to me, at least, was a show that I remember watching when I used to watch shows, and it was called The Body Human. Anybody ever seen that before? The Body Human? It was on the Discovery Channel. What they used to say is that we as humans, we will be able to tell how attractive a person is based off of the symmetry of their face. So if you cut somebody, and I'm not suggesting you do this, but like in math, if we cut something in half, if the two sides are even, then typically they're pretty close to being a supermodel. If you have your eyebrows, your eyes, your nostrils, your cheekbones, your lips, your chin, if everything is perfectly symmetric, then that is the most attractive person to each of the sexes that are out there. Now, why do I bring that up? Well, both sides are the same, and in classical cryptography, that's typically what we would use, is a shared secret or a symmetric key, which means that typically there is one key that we can share. And the problem with that, traditionally in classical cryptography, is how do I get that key from me to you? How do I do that? And so, over the test of time, we've seen, the marathon man running from point A to point B with a secret scroll, and sometimes, being intercepted in the middle and having somebody that can read that. And so that symmetric key has really been something that in at least cryptography has gone a long way. And it's quite interesting if you've never seen it before. What happened here? How come that's not showing up there? Did you turn something off, buddy?
I did not.
Is this on right here? You guys see blue lights on the front of this? Stand by. So it doesn't see that anymore.
I mean, we can just say I broke it.
Thanks, Andrew.
I mean, you know.
So, you know, in ancient times, what we would typically see is that maybe we have Kelsey over here, and we'll just say Queen Kelsey over here, okay? And down here we have King, oh, you know what? How about King David? Perfect. I mean, good Bible reference right there.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah.
Right. All right, so we have Queen Kelsey over here. Queen Kelsey, hello. Hello, King David. Good to see you over there. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen? Let me share my screen. Thank you. So what we typically would see is, let's say these two folks were allies, all right? And they needed to work against the evil kingdom of Kincaidville. Kincaid, I hope you don't mind me picking on you. And so these two would figure out a way that, you know, from Queen Kelsey land to King David land, that, you know, there may be a road that is traveled upon that they would traverse from point A to point B. Well, Kincaid also would sit upon his perch up here, like the men in 300. And he would wait with the shit-eating grin here, waiting for them to come by. Well, Queen Kelsey over here would maybe have somebody like Sir Trenton, who would be the long in the tooth wise man, right? And we'll knight him as the wise man, right? And so Sir Trenton came up with this magical way where he said, let's go ahead and have a 6-foot staff, that we could wrap a piece of papyrus around the 6-foot staff. And then on that piece of papyrus, we would have this letter that may say something like this, attack. And then in the middle, it might say at, and then at the bottom, it might say dawn. And then as you wrap it around here, it would space out those characters based off of a predetermined spot on the staff. And what we would do is through security, through obscurity, we might come in here and put in things like, you know, special characters and other things that would maybe try to make sure that nobody else was coming in here and reading this thing. And as long as we knew that in this scribed piece of papyrus here that there was a secret message, we could then roll up that scribe, right? And put that little seal of approval on it. And then we would have the fleet of foot John over here, Sir John, he would run across this road that has been traveled. Well, Kincaid is sitting here waiting for John to come. And when John gets here, Kincaid may come with his army of goons that, Shane, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to throw you in here. I'm also going to be in here. And, you know, we'll put, you know, Josh, how about the Joshes over here? And Andrew,
Yep.
we'll put you up here with the goons as well.
Okay.
Okay.
They got 2 more options.
No, I put Josh times 2 right there. So Kincaid is here. He tells his army of goons to go and intercept John. And, we do just that through intimidation, right? So we're going to go over there. Hey, John, what do you got going on over here? John says what? What are you going to say, John? If we capture you between, Mount Olympus and what are you going to say here? Just some random thing. Well, I tell you what. Why don't you give it to me? And, back here in my tent back here, I have some lovely ladies that I'd like you to introduce to in my harem. Okay? So he'd be like, hell yeah, show me where to sign. So we would take that. I'd give it to Kincaid. Shane being the long in the tooth guy, the wise man over here, he would put fire to the little candle wax thing going on here. He'd very carefully piece it apart and unscribe it, the scroll, and he'd, very interesting. And then he would have, these two yahoos maybe be the personal Xerox machine and actually scribe everything down while John's getting lit up like a Christmas tree in there with some opium or something. Who knows what he's going to do in there, right? So, we end up taking a carbon copy of this message right here, and then we seal it back up, and then he comes out stumbling and bumbling, drunk as a skunk on a tree trunk here, and we end up giving it back to him, and then he kind of, moseys on his merry way. No harm, no foul. Well, he gets over to King David and the two Joshes as the wise people. And when he does that, what we end up thinking is King David comes out and says, what the hell is this? What are you giving me over here? It's just a scroll, and it's sealed, so he opens it up, but it's got some garbage going on, right? And so John has also maybe some knowledge. He's like, oh yeah, hey, we wrapped it around this staff and unravel it. And the question would be, well, how big's the staff? What's the size of the key, right? And so in classical cryptography, things like that would be the key. And in this particular scenario, this was actually called a sictale. It rhymes with itale. So it's a sictale is what it would be called. And so that piece of papyrus or whatever thing that they could write on would get wrapped around there. And there would be a little notch on the top and the bottom of the staff that would be a predetermined thickness of the staff that would allow point A and point B to wrap it around and communicate in its most basic form, with the intent that, hey, when I turn the staff a certain way, I could see the attack at dawn message. Well, maybe evil Kincaidville or evil Kincaid, King Kincaid, didn't deduce that the first time. And so, King David here, he rolls one up. That's right. And they burn it. And then they get going here. He sends back John going the other way. And evil Kincaid's right there. He says, hey, I remember you. You were here yesterday. What's going on? And John said, no, nothing. You still got those ladies back there? Yeah, I tell you what just happened? Where'd you come from? Well, John, what would you say? You seem like a trustworthy guy. What would you say? Nowhere, right? Well, John, I'll tell you what. You got two options here. Here's $100,000, cash money. Why don't you tell me the real story? So, John, what would you say? Okay, you were coming from King David. Thank you so much, right? Now, if that's all he gave us, we got, our goons over here. Well, we could also use another methodology, which is called the rubber hose methodology, where we take a rubber hose and we just beat the hell out of it, right? However, that would show negative effects on his person and probably give away to Queen Kelsey that something, in fact, happened, right? And that'd be quite unfortunate because, we don't want to hurt you. So, we can either bribe him, we can force him or coerce him to give us the information through whatever means possible, or whatever. Well, while he's in here again, it's very similar here, the message where King David may say, let's meet at 9 a.m., 0900, right? And he rolls that up, puts that in there, and it comes across here. And maybe this time, maybe we give him $200,000. Well, here's 100,000, here's another 100,000. How do we read this thing? Well, I don't know. They've wrapped it around the staff, and well, how big was the staff? Well, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't feeling too good because I was here last night, but it was probably about that big. And it had these weird notches right here and right here that were kind of weird. And so what we ended up seeing here is now these guys not only have the original message right here, but now they have the second message that they've intercepted through this man in the middle technique, or meet me in the middle technique. And because of that, now they also have an idea of what the key is, right? So the symmetric key, or the shared key, as well as, the notches that are on here and maybe different positionings of this. So we give it back to the wise, long in the tooth guy, not to be confused with the goon. Yeah. Singular there. It's not, I'm not throwing myself there. And so this symmetric key is the shared key. Shane, or Sir Shane, tells the evil King Kincaid here that, okay, well, I don't recognize what this says, but if we take some of this right here, and we take some of this right here, and we wrap them both around this staff, then maybe we can figure this thing out. So he has the goon copy the message, carefully getting rid of the wax here that was used to seal from King David, and then John is feeling pretty good. He comes back out of the harem here after spending however long, and he's got a wad full of cash, right? He jumps back on his horse, and he's on his merry way. Well, there's a couple of different options here. Either the information that could be available, you just pass it through and you're just sending it on its way. So we're forwarding that information. But what if this guy in the middle was able to not only intercept, but decode the message? He could also, at that point, very easily manipulate the message. And here's the kicker here. What if we were able to invest some money into the education of Sir Shane, and we changed that from 0900 to how about 12 o'clock, high noon, right? So King David's still going to meet us there. We're going to still attack at dawn from Queen Kelsey. She still thinks that we're attacking at dawn until she's going to receive the message. King David says, okay, yeah, I'm going to attack at dawn. We get the message in between here. We intercept it. We rewrite it to say, no, let's attack at 12. Now, Queen Kelsey says, okay, well, they're in. They've agreed. They're going to attack at 12. This guy down here, he said 9 o'clock. He's going to come to the battlefield at 9 o'clock. She's thinking noon. That now makes it a little bit more in favor of the evil King Kincaid, right? So we can be a one-on-one here. Hopefully he'll be victorious. Or over here, it'll be a one-on-one 3 hours later, right? So it makes it a little bit more in their favor. Now, you're like, Ben, none of that stuff ever happened. You don't have any idea what you're talking about. Well, let me just show you what I'm talking about. Okay? Let me show you what I'm talking about. Now, if you've never seen the movie Indiana Jones, then you've lived quite a sheltered life. So in this movie, he's an archaeologist, and he has here what's called the Staff of Ra. He's trying to find the Ark of the Covenant. And the staff needs to be a certain size. It's got a little emblem up the top that has a gem on it. You put the emblem on the top of the sictale. And then at a certain point in time during the day, the sun shines through this clever hole that's in an ancient pyramid that will tell you exactly where the Ark of the Covenant is. Now, what happens if the staff is too small or if it's too big? You'd be digging in the wrong location. And that's exactly in this movie, if you've never seen it before, that's what happened. That until this time, they're digging in the wrong location. And once he's able to figure this out, they start digging in the correct location, which is kind of neat. If you've never seen that movie, it's a pretty good movie. So that's real. And that would be symmetric encryption. So we're using a shared key, a shared secret. And we're trying to do the best that we could in the classical cryptography domain. And so I mention that because there's symmetric, which is the same, and then there's asymmetric, which means it's different. And the asymmetric uses what's called, let me bring this up. Sure, we'll keep that. So asymmetric cryptography is more of a modern cryptography. But the premise still stands the same. We have a message. We don't want somebody to see the message. So we want to be able to protect the message. And we do that by having a shared system. And that shared system allows us to create for each person that is on that shared system, we create what's called a keyed pair. And that keyed pair is a private key and a public key that are mathematically related. And so each one of us in this type of crypto system right here, each one of us, we'd be able to get the keyed pair assigned to us. So let's say here in this modern cryptography, which is typically asymmetric cryptography, each one of us joins a crypto system. So typically, that crypto system is called a public key infrastructure crypto system. And each one of us that are here would have a machine that we would have that is on that crypto system. Just give me a second here. And so we got Ben, we got Shane, we got Andrew, we got Kelsey, we got Trenton, Kincaid, John, Josh, David, Josh. Looks like Lacey's on here and Aditi's on here. Okay. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 people. 12 people that are on. Okay. And what we're all doing here is we're all part of what's called the web of trust. So because we all belong to this organization that we'll just call Cyber Protects, We've hired each and every one of you guys. What we want to do is we will assign a keyed pair to each person that is within the organization. But there's a trick here, right? In the middle, right here, there will be this thing that's called the certificate authority. And then next to the certificate authority, there will be this thing that's called the registration authority. So the CA stands for certificate authority. And the RA stands for the registration authority. And the way that I kind of typically will explain this right here, you know, I'm a big fan of movies. And if you haven't already noticed, I like to use those for metaphors. Well, kind of like in the Great Wizard of Oz.
Step forward, Tin Man. You dare to come to me for a hug, will you?
So if you're not familiar with that, you can go and watch that on your own time, but just trying to give you the reference here that no one dare talks to the Great Wizard of Oz. And in this particular case, that is the certificate authority. Certificate authority is the one that issues the certificates. Okay? We are not cool enough to talk to the Great Wizard of Oz, the certificate authority. So what do we have to do? We have to go and talk to its proxy. You guessed it. Whoops, different color. The registration authority. And so when we come on board, when each person comes on board, the first thing that they would have to do is go out and request a keyed pair from the registration authority. The registration authority says, I'm your guy. You need to provide me some I-9 information. And typically we make people go through what's called an enrollment process. And that enrollment process makes people provide those I-9 documentation. So things like your birth certificate, your social security number, your driver's license, government issued ID. There's list A, list B, and list C, and you can go look those up on your own time. But if you've never done this, like with the federal government before, or the organization that you're working at, this is the process that you have to go through to get inside of the PKI to belong to the Web of Trust. Once you've gone through this enrollment process, the certificate authority will issue you a keyed pair, a private and a public key. Each machine communicates with the certificate authority when it is needed to communicate with it. Because we never want to share our private key. You never want to share your private parts. There's an easy way to remember that. So when we're talking about asymmetric cryptography, what would happen if you shared your private key? Okay, anybody could crack it? It could be you, yeah. It would no longer be private. You share it, it's no longer private, right? That's why, like if you have a CAC or some authentication mechanism, if you lose it, you have to report it immediately because somebody could probably figure out your PIN. Typically it's your birthday. So keep that in mind. If you share your private key, now your keyed pair is compromised. What we typically will do is we will sign it with our private key, and utilize somebody else's public key by going and getting it from the certificate authority, typically in the GAL, the global address list. So within Active Directory, which we're going to talk about next Tuesday, and then we'll review again, within Active Directory, there's actually an add-on that is called PKCS add-on that allows you to begin to, within AD, Active Directory, allows you to not only create and modify users, but also use public key cryptographic services in an environment that establishes that realm of trust or that web of trust. And because of that, the certificate authority literally keeps the keys to the kingdom. If you have a clearance, then you probably have filled out the SF85. What's that? All right, right. For you to be an administrator of a PKI system, you also have to fill out what's called an SF86, which is a position of public trust. Kelsey, why? Why would we want somebody to acknowledge and go through a background investigation? Not only that, right? But if you're in charge of literally the keys to the kingdom, there's an extra level of vetting that goes on through that SF86, which is called the position of public trust. And so typically in modern cryptography, it becomes much more complex because everything will go through a proxy in order to be encrypted. Yeah.
It's always kind of asymmetric basically because it has
Symmetric, but handled by. No. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Because if it's symmetric cryptography, one person, it would be more of a point to point. Like you and I would be sharing information just between you and I. And then if you had a relationship with Trenton, you and Trenton would be sharing information between you and Trenton. So that would be a shared key. Between you and him, between you and me, there'd be another shared key. Between me and Trenton, that would be another shared key. We wouldn't use that same shared key for all three transactions here. Not for symmetric cryptography. Asymmetric cryptography would all go through the certificate authority. Yep. And those certificates are stored here on the certificate authority in an X.509 format. X.509 format. So on your exam, you're going to have 3 to 5 questions that will talk around cryptography, but more along the lines of asymmetric cryptography. Keyed pair is a dead giveaway for asymmetric cryptography. X509, dead giveaway for certificates and certificate authority. X509, asymmetric cryptography. Asymmetric cryptography is a keyed pair, so it's PKI, public key infrastructure. Sometimes you'll see web of trust on there. So that's the difference. You had a question, Kelsey? No? All right, any questions on anything before I turn it over to Andrew? So we like to go over this multiple times because usually this is the thing that people typically struggle with the most. But keep in mind, especially now that they've changed it for the 601, there used to be a whole domain on cryptography and PKI. And now they've collapsed that into this domain 2. So before there was 3 to 5, I'd be surprised if there still wasn't 3 to 5 in this new exam that's coming out, because this is an important topic that they always want to harp on. So knowing how this works, that it runs a PKCS, it interacts with Active Directory, it's asymmetric cryptography, there's keyed pairs, it's a web of trust, and you must belong to that web of trust in order to be able to send and receive encrypted messages. Big difference between what I just showed you there and our running crazy wild man John going in between the different kingdoms with symmetric cryptography.
Do you say that they have the same network for that? Because earlier you could say that a man in the middle, which is theoretically kind of what they were doing, with the base have the same network.
For which one?
For the man in the middle, they have to be on the same network, right?
Yes, we'll say yes for that. That's the easy answer for that.
But not just like when they with the kingdom analogy that he did,
Mhm.
they would not have to be who's just something.
So, I mean, both of these examples, if somebody somehow is able to get in between, there's a chance that they could perform different types of cryptographic attacks on them. And there's a few different attacks that are out there. One's a plain text, a known plain text attack. Another one's a chosen plain text attack. One's a known ciphertext attack. And it's very, very difficult to do
Would
that.
they have to be targeted, or could it just be like random?
Most of the time, people are targeted for that. Like there's somebody that may be susceptible, and people will target that person more than others. That's a great question. Great question.
So we ready to jump into going over what we like to lovingly refer to as the crypto bucket? All right. Go ahead and get this slide up and then share it with you guys out on WebEx. So hopefully that's sharing now. Okay, I'm not sure what WebEx is doing here.
Are you sharing it on your screen?
Yeah, I was gonna share it up on mine. Not quite sure what WebEx is doing here. Let me. Yeah, it's still giving me issues. I am not. Okay.
All right. Well, while Andrew's figuring that out, why don't we just do a quick exercise here? And this is a.
Oh, hey,
Oh,
it came up.
there we go.
So let me.
That was quick, short, and sweet.
Okay. Hey, there we go.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Well, that Ben, would you mind popping that up there for me? See, it's up there, Kelsey. So we have three acronyms that we will go over here that will help you to break up all of the standards that you need to know coming into the test. So the biggest reason for these acronyms, and we're going to drill these like we will the courts, is that if you're able to, at the very least, categorize which of these terms is what, whether it's a symmetric algorithm, asymmetric, whether it's a hash. If you have a multiple choice question that asks you to identify, and they say symmetric, asymmetric, or a hash, and they give you these multiple choice options, if you run through these acronyms in your head, more than likely you're able to narrow that question down to a 50-50. So even if you don't pay attention to anything else, but you just know that acronym, I'd say you're within firing distance to get that question right. So first acronym we talk about is 23 braids. The first algorithm with that is Twofish, and that's a public domain block cipher. Right below it, the 3, that's just triple des. And with that one, biggest thing you need to know is it extended the life of des through a technique called key stretching. So des, or triple des, is quite literally you're just running the des algorithm 3 times. And you're just further encrypting and mangling up that text. You have Blowfish, which is, again, public domain. That's a 64-bit block cipher with 16 rounds. And you guys have all of this data on the slides that we've sent out. So don't feel like you have to sit there and try to write down everything I don't say. Next one you've got, it's RC4 is the one I remember seeing on test, but you might see RC5. And those are a stream cipher. And a stream cipher, it's where data is encrypted in real time. And it uses a variable length key. You have AES, which is based on the Rindell block cipher.
Rindell.
Rindell.
Mm-hmm. That's close though.
The J silent, right?
I mean, tomato.
Tomato. Well, you know what? It's a good idea.
Oh, I like that.
Good idea. So, IDEA is an acronym. It stands for International Data Encryption Algorithm. It's a block cipher with 64-bit blocks. You have DES, which you have 56 bits plus 8 parity bits, which just brings it out to being a 64-bit block cipher. And you've got, 16 rounds of transposition and substitution. And then with Safer, it's just designed for use in software. So I encourage you guys, write down that acronym. And as you're studying for this test, run through and make sure you know what each of, if nothing else, know what the acronyms are and what they fall under. Are there any questions about that? So, next acronym I'm going to throw at you guys is asymmetric encryption. And then you talk about some baseball guy with this one.
Well, I am a baseball fan. Having played a little bit of college baseball, I can tell you that there is no argument about who the best shortstop of all time is, although some people would try. If you're a baseball fan, then you would probably put this person up in the top 10, hopefully the top 5, if not the top 2. Derek Jeter. If you don't know who Derek Jeter is, hopefully you got a friend named Derek. So either way, I had an old fella that said that he remembered Bo Derek. And he had a pinup on his wall of Bo Derek, apparently. But that's an easy way for us to remember the algorithms that are associated with asymmetric cryptography. Is Derek, the acronym Derek.
And each of those letters stands for another one. So first one you see up there, it's Diffie-Hellman. And with that one, it's based off of logarithms that you go through in algebra. So I don't know about anyone else, but when I heard Diffie-Hellman, whenever one of the other instructors here helping me memorize it mentioned logarithms, I got Vietnam flashbacks to Algebra 2 in high school. It wasn't trig. I honestly don't remember. I'm slept a bit. But with Diffie-Hellman, it's vulnerable to man-in-the-middle attacks. The E, that's representing ECC, or elliptical curve cryptography. With that one, it's a small key. It's faster, which is one of the keywords that you may see associated with it. If it asks what type of cryptography is used on mobile devices, your answer is more than likely going to be ECC. And I believe it's the fastest out of the asymmetric algorithms that we've listed. And then you have, right below ECC with the R, you have RSA. And with that one, it's dealing with a ton of prime numbers. Then you have El-Gamal, or El-Gamel. And with that one, it's similar to Diffie-Hellman. It's based off of logarithms, but it is able to extend some of the functionality within Diffie-Hellman and includes digital signatures. And then Knapsack is one that I've never heard of being used, but from what I've been told with it, it's based off of, it uses the fixed weight. And it was based off of the idea that in a bag, the average weight of what would be contained within it, with a book, a computer, and the contents inside, and they would use that to generate a key. So it sounds pretty cool, pretty unique, but it doesn't seem all that practical. And then the last one here, we've got hashes, which, I don't know about anyone else, but hashes are really not my stuff. Yeah. So that, I'm censoring myself a bit there with that acronym.
Really not my shit. I'll say it for you.
Okay.
That's the acronym, the mnemonic way that we remember hashes. So the difference between the first two, symmetric and asymmetric algorithms, are encryption techniques. Hashes are used for integrity only. They're not used for encryption. Not used for encryption. They're used for integrity only. And I say that because on your exam, it will try to trick you. It'll say, which one of these integrity algorithms? And then immediately you should know, okay, they're talking about hashing. Hashing is for integrity. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. So with this one, and a fun tool that you can play around with hashing, it's real easy to do on your computer. So program of choice I recommend for anyone that wants to play around with generating a hash is to go on a Windows world and download Hashcat. Pretty simple to play around with. And hashing, it's designed to verify integrity of a message or of a file. So if you go in, earlier today I needed to download some stuff to adjust, actually to update my Kali Linux VM. But on the download site, they gave a hash. That after I've downloaded the file, I can run hash count and get a hash for that file and compare it with what was uploaded on the website. And the reason you do that is that if those hashes are different, then you know that something has changed in the file. So some of the hashes here to remember, you have RIPE-MD, and it's based off of MD5. You got NTLM, or New Technology Landman, and the keyword I would remember with that is Microsoft. You have MD5, or Message Digest, and that produces a 128-bit hash, but with it, you have an issue with some collision. Now, a collision, I don't think we've talked about what that is, but a collision occurs whenever an algorithm or a hash, you may have differing inputs, but you get the same output when you're able to generate the same value twice. You have SHA, or Secure Hashing Algorithm, and that'll give 160-bit digest. You have Haval, which sounds rather fun to say. Sounds like that might be a good restaurant.
It does. It does.
I'd go eat at Haval.
That's a great question. I remember when I was going to University of Florida that there was a place called the University Bookstore where I could go and get these things that were called Cliff's Notes. Anybody ever heard of Cliff's Notes before? They're a little yellow pamphlet. I think they're probably still yellow. Where, you know, if you ain't got time to be reading War and Peace or Gone with the Wind, you go pay $20 for Cliff's Notes. And you know what? It takes that 10 days worth of reading and condenses it down into a 1 hour study session. Now, you may be more familiar with Reader's Digest. And what Reader's Digest takes typically are Pulitzer Prize winning articles from more lengthy, whether it's periodicals in magazines or newspapers or online publications. It'll take those articles and then commission with that author to take that article that may be 7 or 8 pages. Reader's Digest will say, hey, make it into 3 paragraphs. Because typically a Reader's Digest is a small little book that people read while they're in the bathroom. And so it typically is a condensed version of a larger article where you just get the straight dope from that article. And so that's what a digest is. You have something that is massive, that if we can get it to a finite checksum or a value, which is called a digest of that, if I share that document across the internet, then you should get a checksum. You should get a checksum. You should get a checksum. And that digest is the same, or the checksum is the same from one place to another. So that hash value becomes the same from one to another. That's a great question.
Real good question. So one of the things with Evolve is that it supports hashes of different lengths. And we've listed out on there, it can go anywhere from 128 bits all the way up to 256. You have HMAC, which that one uses a key digest. And then lastly here, we've got Tiger, which is, was designed specifically to be used on 64-bit platforms, and the default hash value is 192 bits. So if you guys are going to be making flashcards with these different algorithms on it, what I would encourage you to do, and I would write, the thing. So if I'm making one for RipeMD, I'd put RipeMD on one side. On the other side, I'd put that it's a hash. I would put that it's based off of MD5, and that it happens to have a collision. I would look for a couple keywords that I would remember quickly. And I encourage you to make sure it's different than what you put for some of the others. You want to have something unique that's unique and memorable, so that when you're in a testing environment and your brain's shot, that you can sit there and look at and go, okay, I think it's this because I know that RipeMD is based on MD5. Or I know that Haval can support varying different lengths. Or, I know that NTLM, it's based off of Windows.
All right, let me share my screen here.
Stop my shit.
All right, so just like Andrew was saying there, these are important. These different algorithms are important. Let me share it here with everybody. But kind of like I was just saying with, the Cliff's Notes, oftentimes people say, Ben, I ain't got time to be memorizing all this stuff. So let me go ahead and just tell you typically what we see on the exam, okay? So typically you'll see triple des on the exam. You'll see des on the exam. And maybe a reference to the Rindle. Here, AES and RC5. So on the symmetric algorithms, those are typically the ones that we see, typically. On the asymmetric algorithms, they're pretty high on the hog with talking about mobile devices and elliptical curve cryptography, as well as the most common asymmetric algorithm that is based on factoring the product of two large prime numbers. So you see this right here, this context clue, two large prime numbers, that's RSA. You will absolutely, I'd be willing to bet a paycheck, you will see both of those on the exam. The first ones that I just said, I don't know, typically we do see them. These two absolutely will be on your exam. These two right here. All right, let's keep looking. Here on this last one right here, NTLM is the password hash that Microsoft uses. And now we're actually on version 3 of NTLM. MD5 has had a collision, has been forced collisions, which mean two people have put in two different values and got the same hash from it. Let me talk about that here in a second. So you may see MD5. Very likely of all these, you will see SHA-1, which is a 160-bit digest. So if it says this 160-bit integrity algorithm, then you know that, hey, the only one that's 160-bit is SHA-1 or SHA. So if you're like, hey, I don't have time to go through and do all those or learn all that stuff, then hopefully I just gave you a straight dope. So let me just explain something here. So Shane said, why does a collision matter? So kind of like, in networks or on the road, if you have a collision, then typically bad things will happen. In network, it leads to latency, maybe jitter, maybe even dropping of some packets. On the road, it could lead to somebody going to the hospital. Well, if we have a hash that is used for integrity, we can perform on this algorithm what's called the avalanche test. The avalanche test, or the avalanche effect. And so these mathematicians spend their entire lives coming up with these awesome algorithms, thinking, hey, you know what, I've invested 25 years and I have the coolest thing. And then immediately, just like in everything else we do, if you say you got something that's awesome, what do all the people out there do? They do what? They're going to rain on your party. Kind of like the evening news. It's all bad news. So they're going to start throwing darts at you to see if they can break it, right? And so if I have a mountain here, this is the avalanche effect. So if I have a mountain here, and at the top of my mountain, I'm going to put a little gear. This is going to be my gear right here, okay? If I have input A over here, and then over here I have input B, well, if input A is hello, and input B is goodbye, and I'm talking about the text hello and the text goodbye. If we put it into an algorithm, which is my little gear right here, I put both of these into my little gear. Well, hello, it looks nothing like goodbye. So what I would expect is that hello, if after I put it into my algorithm, it would generate some sort of output over here the output of A, that is completely on the other side of the mountain as far as its looks are concerned, to the output of input B. Right? So these two would should generate you two disparate values that you cannot deduce one from the other. Right? Well, what if we throw in another input here? And we'll just call that input C. Well, input C, how about we just say it's all lowercase? Hello. Well, to the naked eye, and a naive approach here would say that these two values should have the same hash because it's the same word, when in fact, they don't have the same hash because they're two different words. They're completely different words. Now, phonetically, they're the same, but syntactically, they're not, right? One's upper, one's lower. And so when we have the input of C here, of hello, that should give me something of an output kind of like right in the middle, right? It should give me, something that cannot be deduced off of anything else. Well, where we have problems with these algorithms, where people, this is deliberately what they try to do is to break these algorithms, is somebody will have an input, and the input of, let's just say, input D here, which is goodbye, all lowercase, may generate, after I put it in here, it may generate the same value of hello here. And then immediately, in this realm of trust that I have, what happens? If I'm expecting that input A gives me output A, and then now I have input B that gives me output A, what ends up happening to this algorithm? Right. So now the integrity of the algorithm, I can no longer trust it. I have trust issues with that algorithm.
Really get lucky to eventually get to. I still trust it. It's actually doing it backwards.
Totally agree. Totally agree. And so that's why people still use MD5, is because it's very rare, right? But here we go. In a finite key space, that means that it has limits, right? It has boundaries. So if there is a limit of the number of keys that I can generate, let's say like the birthday attack, there's going to be a collision sooner or later. There's going to be a collision. It's mathematically proven. But if it's an infinite key space, like with asymmetric cryptography and RSA, that's why a lot of these ransomware attacks use RSA, 2048-bit encryption, is because mathematically it will take something crazy like 1 million years to crack that thing. So that's the avalanche effect. I don't want to get too sidetracked here, because it's important for us to take a step back and make sure that everybody understands, because I think that we skipped something here that I want to make sure that we talk about, and that is just the basics here, the basics, right? The basics are, we have plain text that is encrypted using an algorithm. It becomes ciphertext. That ciphertext is then used, that same algorithm, to decrypt it. It becomes plain text. Sometimes this is also called clear text. Plain text, clear text. Some people say encode, decode. I mean, for purposes of your test, you may see the word clear text or encrypted text. Typically in the business, we say plain text or ciphertext. Okay, and that's at a very high level. Well, there's a couple of things that I want to make sure that we understand here. There's in classical cryptography, there's two different types of ciphers. One is the substitution, the other one is the transposition. So substitution means that there's replacements, whereas trans means across, right? Letters are moved across according to whatever rule that we have. So transposition cipher would be moving something from the normal. A substitution would just be, replacing it with something. In classical cryptography, that's typically what we see being used. Now, there was a guy named August, There was a guy named August, and his last name sounds kind of phallic, Kirchhoff, and he said that if you are in this cryptography field and you want to have everybody say that your type of cryptography algorithm is awesome, that you need to publish the algorithm and allow people to test it, Why? Why do you think this was why do you think I would mention Kirchhoff's principle and really it was revolutionary at the time. He said, publish it and let people test it. Why? Why is that such an important thing? Right. You want people to test it because if it stands the test of time, then it's worth its weight in gold. And so a lot of these that we've been talking about are sound in nature. DES was created in 1974. It was cracked in 1997. DES was. So it lasted a long time. All right. Check this out. So in 1917, what a great movie. Or was it 1918? 17?
It was 1918.
Is it? But right around the time World War I was coming, or almost ending there. 1917, there was this guy named Gilbert Vernon, and I can't make up this stuff, right? He said that he has the perfect type of secrecy. What a bold statement for Homeboy to make 103 years ago, right? Perfect type of secrecy. So you would imagine that, all these modern cryptographers or these cryptographers that were out there, Einstein and the like, we're like, this dude's full of crap. Let me see if I can break it. Well, here we are 103 years later, and Gilbert Vernon created the Vernon cipher that allows what's called a one-time pad, or as we know it, a one-time password. And this, for us, when we get into access control and authentication, usually two-factor authentication and one-time passwords come hand in hand. So 103 years later, Homeboy was correct. Perfect type of secrecy. Now, we could argue if it is, in fact, the perfect type of secrecy, but it's lasted a long time. All right, so let's just keep it simple here. There's one thing I want to talk about, and then we're going to go into an exercise, and then we'll hopefully be able to clean up some things on Tuesday whenever we come back. If anybody has any questions here. So one thing that I want to say is. You may have seen this before, this word, and I would tell you I'm not going to do a stone cold lock here or tell you 100%, but I would say there's a fantastic chance that steganography is going to be on your exam. If you think about it, how can we cover or protect things? In this particular sentence that you see, it's hiding one piece of data within another. So look, if you say that, hey, every first letter of every word is the message that we're trying to get across. Well, you and I still have to agree upon that somehow. So how we agree upon that, whether we're in Istanbul and we're at a coffee shop there and we say, hey, I'm going to send you a message. Every first letter of every word is going to be what the secret is, okay? So we could do it like that. We could send another message, but however that key is going to get negotiated, it's susceptible to being intercepted, right? And so in this particular case, we agree that, you know, the first letter of every word is in fact secret message, and boom, you get secret inside. Well, this is just in text right here. Well, usually what we see is that our adversaries are very clever with using this technique right here. So ISIS, they would use steganography. And typically what they would do is they would publish a video on social media, or maybe an MP3, or even some sort of image file. And in that image file, it still, or the video or the MP3, it still works, right? You can watch the video, you know, you look at it, you're like, man, if you don't know that there's a hidden message in it, you're thinking, that's stupid. Or you look at the MP3 and, you know, maybe it's a song that somebody recorded or an Audacity MP3 export or whatever. Or it could be a cat picture or cat video or whatever, right? Doesn't matter. If it's a video, if it's audio, or if it's an image, you can actually take that, each one of those, and hide or cover up a secret message inside of it using different tools that are out there. And by doing that, if you know what tool I use and you're able to access that video, that MP3 or that JPEG, then you can see that secret message. But if you didn't know it was there, you wouldn't be able to see it. And antivirus wouldn't pick it up because it's hidden. And so steganography is quite clever. I remember when I was president of the Cybersecurity Summit here in town, we did a challenge for the summit, and we gave away like $250 to whoever could figure it out. And it was a steganography contest where we hid some messages inside of some image files. And I think that there was 12 people that attempted it, and only 3 of them were able to figure it out. We even told them what we were using. But I got to tell you that is a sample. It's not rocket science. Typically, if you're using a piece of software, it's pretty straightforward. And I would say with very good confidence, that steganography will be on your exam. All right, so let's go ahead and do one more practical exercise. You got some practical exercises?
I do.
All right, let's go through and do this one first, and then we'll see how much time we have left, okay? All right, so Trenton, you and Kincaid, don't be giving anything away here. I'm watching both of you guys, okay? All right, so let's talk about this. This is just an exercise, and it should be pretty straightforward. I have a secret. Can you help me? You can ask me one question. One question. Here is the secret message, right here. You can ask me one question, and you can't ask me out loud. Hold on. Don't ask me the question yet. Let me get the chat window over here. Boom. Okay? So ask me the question in the chat window, or try to solve it on your own. But you only have one. Josh, that is the correct question. Shane, that is the correct question. Let me know. Post the answer in the chat window when you get it. Yeah, just give it to me. Don't give it to everybody, please. Oh, Josh, thank you so much. That's funny. If you haven't asked me a question, make sure you do. Kincaid, thank you so much. That's funny. That's funny, Shane. Yes, Josh. Good. Those of you who aren't familiar with this or never seen it before and haven't asked me a question, I'm going to give you a hint. It's ROT 13. Basically, you take 13 of the 26 and put it on top. And then you have the other 13 on the bottom, where you rotate each character 13 places. So using the ROT 13 on the first one right here, G would be T, U would be H, V would be I, and F would be S. So the first word here would be this. Question. You could also cheat and type it in to a website like this right here. So once you get it, go ahead and send that to me.
Somebody's paying for 20 bucks.
Oh, they're paying $20 a month?
You get decent amount of, something like this probably gets amount of.
Yeah. All right, we'll give you 2 more minutes. Then I'm going to give you the answers. David, you are correct, sir. Good. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to give you a little bit of homework. It shouldn't be anything that's going to devastate you, but it's going to be, hopefully it's kind of fun. But then again, my idea of fun is probably a little bit different than yours. So we'll give you a little bit of homework on some of the things that we've covered. In addition to that, what I'd like to do is I'll give you an assessment test with 40 questions, and you can take it over the weekend. And when you get done with it, send it on over to me, and we'll make sure that we grade that and see how you're doing so far. So the answer to this is yes, John. Good. Answer to this is that right there. This is the best class that I've ever taken. I will make sure to recommend this class to all my coworkers. So That's just an example of a simple type of encryption where it's more through obscurity. We just move it or shift it to the right 13. Before we conclude for tonight, do we have any questions? Any questions at all? What do I do for fun? I program things. I build things. Yeah, I think it is. I play sports with my kids. Hang out, watch movies, but I sacrifice sleep. All right, if you don't have any questions, then you're free to go. Hopefully you enjoyed yourself tonight, and we'll see you on Tuesday. Have a good weekend.